Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So this one is from Sky News. It's 3 videos. I've got the source video so you can watch the whole thing, so you can make your own opinion, but this is my opinion. So the first one is about Gaza, and it's about the aid drops that are happening now and the suffering that is going on there. I talked about that in the last Pursuit of Truth. The problem is no independent journalist is allowed in there, so we don't know whether the journalists that are working within Gaza are maybe aligned to Hamas. Maybe Hamas are causing some of this. What I don't see is that when you get from either side of the argument, neither side will admit that there could be a problem with either side, in the sense that obviously, as I say, the maxim of war is that the first casualty of war is truth. And in the essence of controlling that truth and information propaganda, this happens with all conflicts. It's not singular to this one. And that is the essence of like numbers and stuff, So when ministers or whichever side will talk about things as their numbers are accurate and other numbers are inaccurate. And yeah, I suspect all numbers are inaccurate. And there is always the possibility of a bias from whoever's talking, whichever side, and from even though those supporters and distraction and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's obviously definitely starvation or people that are in desperate situations. This idea of creating these food hubs with barbed wire and runny soup and all that kind of stuff. Like I said before, in the West, how COVID was and how everyone was so distraught and talks about that. But imagine how this is to live in Gaza, where there is no food, children not having bread for months, people starving to die, and we see these things. And I assume some of these images are from the American people who are working at these depots. To see this kind of barbed wire, it reminds me of the same kind of treatment that was given to the Afghans when they were allowed to leave on the planes not allowed to leave, but when they were the Americans and the Europeans were moving out, and they were taking people that had helped them, and they had them aligned, and it was like this. It was a sewer place. There was a trough in between them, and the inhumane way of treating human beings, and yet you trying to make out that you're being humane. It just looks, that image of having people against barbed wire, it just invokes other images, and it shows you, irrespective of whether there is the technical term of famine or starvation happening, which maybe some ministers are arguing over, but the fact is that, assuming that a lot of the images that we're seeing are not controlled and not contrived and are true, is a very terrible thing that's happening there. And like I say, take away all these tags, and really it's human beings doing this against human beings. So this, just to see this little boy when he's crying over his dead relative, is just heartbreaking, because I talk about a lot about death and about my mum and about with my kids, my wife, and worrying even about these things. And imagine these children and people that are going through it daily. We do know that for certain, and we know that with war. That's why I don't like the idea of war. And people say war's messy. Well, then why are we doing it as human beings against each other? Because unfortunately, the system we live within has justified that as an action, and as a way when we can stop talking with each other. But this is our one existence, and you can listen to other Pursuits of Truth to hear my views on humanity and all that kind of thing. It goes in most of them. The next one is Bob Geldof talking. There's a lot of hyperbole from him, and some of his bits are a bit unhelpful. But I guess it's coming through in his passion, like blaming all Israelis for the action that's going on there. And I don't think that's fair, and it's not true, because lots of them are protesting, and obviously like I say, we're all product. Babies are all born innocent and blank, and we're all product of our time and our place, and we inherit that, as it were. We're molded like clay into those thoughts and ideas and ideologies and cultures and etc. It's not which are man-made, and therefore to blame, that's the same as like you could blame then him for Iraq and Afghanistan, the illegal wars and the unnecessary wars, the lies of weapons mass destruction and all that, because he was in Britain when that took place. He may have been in the million that protest, that weren't listened to by Tony Blair. So it's unfair and untrue and unhelpful to say things like that. I get his meaning, like when I say that all humanity is, is accountable for all the actions, because when we sit by and we don't do anything, but unfortunately we don't have power, and our system is based on we elect people to do that job and they don't do it, and they just send letters and etc. But I get the meaning of it, but I suspect a lot of people will use those words against, it may detract from his argument, which is a very important one, that we need to focus on the main issue, which is the starvation and what we're doing as human beings against human beings, which is what he sort of alludes to and what I go on about a lot. And that's just because of the system and money and division and all this kind of thing. We didn't have all these things, we wouldn't have all of this. I'm a firm believer of that. I don't know what your view of is that. And the last one is from Sky News, which is about this whites only place in Arkansas. I mean, it's just like my wife said, like I'm sure a lot of the equipment and the stuff they're using, where the heritage of that comes from, and but they're still using all that. But just this idea of like, I don't understand, like in the UK, because they're a company, so I don't know how they're getting around Equality Acts. I mean, I don't know what they have in America, but obviously in the UK you have Equality Act 2010, and therefore I don't think you'd be able to set up a company and ignore that legislation. So I don't know how they are ignoring legislation that is trying to make us more inclusive. And it's just this. I mean, if they want to live on their own, free from everyone else, I mean, I guess that's their choice. But the worrying thing is that history has shown us that when people do that, then in the future things happen. Like there's a lady who talks about the history of the 18 and 1900s in America and slavery and all that kind of stuff, and how segregation, and that's the problem with that mindset of segregation then breeds other people to believe in it, and in the future you could think, well, it's harmless, they're just on their own, and in that little environment maybe it is okay. But the problem is if it grows too big and then they decide, well, no, now we want the whole country like that. And people who are supportive of Hitler, when all the things that we know have been done, not least the Holocaust and other things, and the idea of like, this man he has the inability to sort of acknowledge that it's bad and wants to talk about this Ukrainian, I don't know if it was a Holocaust or what event it was. All things done against human beings are bad and atrocious. But we shouldn't have a problem with it saying support for all these things, But the problem is that's because the way we're brought up, the way we are, like I've mentioned in a lot of these things, we have this bias, and that's the unfortunate thing, because we forget, like he wants to live on his own with his, even though like all these people have European heritage, they're all, mixed from, and we don't know that European heritage than from Romans and Saxons and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that even historically, if you go back enough anyway, we're either all African or from Mesopotamia, whichever is the true one. But the fact is that we're all just human beings. But you only want people to come that have European heritage. It's like, because you want to only live with your neighbours because you think that that'll be the only way to have a pure life. But you don't realise that the wickedness of humanity isn't anything to do with colour, isn't anything to do with culture, isn't anything to do with that is in those individuals. And those individuals come in all races, all cultures, all times, unfortunately. And this is probably because of our system. I don't think it is innate or inherent, because babies don't have it. We learn everything. So there's something we're doing that increases that in certain individuals, and that's nothing to do with these things, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just like going backwards. That's the worrying thing, and the message it sends to the rest of the world, that people want to go and live like that and don't want to live with fellow human beings. We should be getting towards the acknowledgement of the only intrinsic truth, because most of these things are man-made constructs, which we forget. People thousands of years ago couldn't even use Google. People who were intolerable or just wanted to possess land and control people, control you, and still we're buying into that. But the thing is, the intrinsic truth is that we're all found ourselves on this place. We don't know why. We don't know, all these other things. But the intrinsic truth we do know is we're all human beings. We're all one. We may look different. We may have different colour skin. We may have different colour eyes, different colour hair, or not hair. We may have, all these other different things that you could identify us in and say, this is different about you from me. But the truth is, we're all human beings. That's the truth. And that's the thing that should matter and the thing that we keep forgetting. And all these things of division, they don't benefit us as a whole. They just set us back, whichever way it is. All these divisions, the division even, of countries and all these things. We need to acknowledge that we're all human beings and work together, get rid of money, all these things that I always talk about. But anyway, these are the 3 videos that I watched, which disturbed my view, and I thought I'd bring them to you so you can see them. They're in full in video, so you can see all the 3 video clips from Sky News of these things and leave what you think is your view of that. But it just worries me that still, in the 21st century, when we're supposed to be so, evolutionized and we're supposed to be the pinnacle of humanity, we're no longer drilling holes in our heads and etc. and treating each other indifferently. But yet look at what human beings are still doing against human beings. And like I say, it's always over the same things, over land, over possession, with greed, and of, who controls your mind, who controls your workforce and your energy. That's all these things are always about. War, all these things. It's all about that. Control and about possession. Possession of your energy or possession of, your ideas or your land. When we only have this one existence, all of us, and we're all interdependent on each other. This system that we live within now, we're all dependent on each other. And all the actions that we do come down to each one of us. I don't know, it's just, when will humanity see, will embrace humanity and live? I don't know. It seems like that Pandora box has been opened, and it's impossible for everyone to go back to, living with each other. And well, I mean, people now want to just go and live on their own. Just, I don't know. It's like just the abandonment of humanity. It's just, I don't know. I'm lost for words of how to describe that. This time that I would like to see, and I know I'm not going to see it in my life, and I'm sure my children, my great children, are never going to see it. Maybe no one's ever going to see it, where we don't have money and we realise that the intrinsic truth that we're all human beings. That's first, and that we decide all of our futures. We don't have to live this way. This is a decided way to live in this system of democracy and governments and countries and paper and all that and laws and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I get that why some of it's there is to keep us in place, because otherwise those bad people would be able to do whatever they want to do. But I believe that if we were children or grown up in the idea of that we're all human beings, and that lands don't have borders, and that they can have names and all these things and the things that we want, and the ideas and cultures and stuff, but the fact that we're all human beings and this whole place is all of ours, and that we have responsibility to all of this place and to each other, and that we have the capacity to do that. It's only us that's stopping that. We have all the resources freely given to us. We have all the energy, the mind power, everything, with us individuals to create a utopia in our own image, in the sense that whatever the best country in the world or city, we can replicate that because we know how to do it, and we have the resources and we have the mind power. So we can do that and make every place. And then that would get rid of so many things. And I would hope that everyone would benefit from that kind of life, because you wouldn't need crime, because there'd be no, money, there'd be no possession. Everyone would have house. Everyone would have a good living. The problem is making sure that everyone has, that you wouldn't be able to have palaces, because you need everyone to have a house. So everyone would have to have, I know this is now going into communism, but if everyone could have the same kind of amounts, and therefore we could have everything for everyone, and that there wouldn't be need for jealousy and possession and greed and all these things and crime. Everyone would have, the healthcare. We'd all be able to work together on cracking diseases because we wouldn't be, trying to get a patent first before anyone else, or the benefit of some pharmaceutical thing that we have that's making us a lot of money and stopping us from going in future. Phones that you wouldn't have to wait 10 years for the best phone that you already found out 10 years ago because you want to dilute it so that you can have different versions every year. All this kind of necessary waste that we would get rid of. I don't know what your view of that. Anyway, take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace. Enjoy the clips.
A crowd gathers outside the morgue in Zakim in northern Gaza. They have come to claim the bodies of those killed trying to get food in Israel's war with Hamas. She's going to God, shouts this man, standing beside a truck which is delivering bodies. We will stay strong, we won't be beaten. Look at the young boy on the left in a blue t-shirt, clutching onto the rails, broken with grief. On the other side of the vehicle, a distraught little girl. My son, mutters the woman next to her in brown. Lurched over his loved ones. You will leave me with no one, says this man. I will be on my own, only me. Inside, they stand shoulder to shoulder, covering their noses from the stench of death, hoping to identify a loved one. In a conflict moving so fast, so many victims to document, and yet more alleged killings of Palestinians impossible to independently verify. This is the aftermath of yet another alleged incident in which Gazans say they had gone in search of aid, but instead faced Israeli gunfire. Israel says it only acts in self-defense.
There were some lights at night. People thought there was some aid. People headed to the lights. Then they were shot at. My uncle was killed there.
Zakim has become a bottleneck of desperation and danger. These pictures were filmed hours before the incident as thousands came in search of food, hoping to grab aid from trucks crossing the border into northern Gaza from Israel.
My children have not eaten for a week. I've been suffering from a lack of food, moving from place to place, looking for something to eat. At the very least, I've been looking for a piece of bread to keep my children going, but to no avail. I give my children water and salt to drink throughout the day.
You arrive to pick up a bag of flour and gangs and mafias attack you and take the bag. I've been here for 2 or 3 months and haven't benefited at all.
This video shows the abject desperation of people trying to find something to eat, swarming round aid lorries in the heat and dust of southern Gaza. Israel has sanctioned airdrops of food, but that can be incredibly dangerous.
We have airdrops we have seen previously have caused chaos in communities and have killed people by landing within communities, or children have drowned trying to retrieve the airdrops in the sea. So no, there is nothing good or positive currently about airdrops.
Some aid has crossed into Gaza, but it's nowhere near enough. It's a race against time, with aid organisations warning malnutrition is getting worse by the day. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Bob, you've written very strongly about the situation in Gaza this week. What made you want to get into it now?
Like everyone else, I would have an opinion about the war itself and its conduct on both sides, but that opinion would be precisely the same as the next guy in the bar. When it comes to famine and starvation, I think I have a right to speak. I've had 40 years of doing this. I was a founding patron of the Genocide Aegis Trust for Genocide Studies, which is an arm of the National Holocaust Museum in the UK. And to be honest with you, Trevor, it enrages me to a point beyond comprehension when I see the images that Sky News were publishing and what Dr. Maynard was reporting from inside Gaza. And at that point, I thought that 40th anniversary of Band Aid, my own past and history with this, I thought I should say something now.
The Israeli view is that there is actually no famine caused by Israel. There's a man-made shortage, but it's been engineered by Hamas. I guess Israelis would say we don't see much criticism from your side of Hamas.
That's a false equivalence, and the Israeli authorities are lying.
They're lying, did you say?
They're lying. Netanyahu lies, is a liar. The IDF are lying. They're dangling food in front of starving, panicked, exhausted mothers. And while they arrive to accept the tiny amount of foods that this sort of set up pantomime outfit, the Gaza Humanitarian Front, I would call it, as they dangle it, then they're shot wantonly. This month, up to now, 1,000 children or 1,000 people have died of starvation. I'm really not interested in what either of these sides are saying. When you target infants and children, when their wounds are no longer capable of healing, when breastfeeding mothers can no longer do this, then everything goes out the window. Talk about recognizing Palestinian states. This, at this point, is a kind of virtue signaling. It's academic. It doesn't matter. This wanton criminality must stop immediately. As an instrument of war,
the Israelis would say
famine and malnutrition is a crime.
Just as a matter of fact, the Israelis would say that there are over 700 trucks sitting inside Gaza waiting for the United Nations to collect them. And they say that this is a result of the UN's own incompetence, that this material, these food is there. And I don't think there's any argument that food is there, is there?
I know you have to be fair-minded. I don't. I know this stuff back to front. Band-Aid deals with these sort of people all the time. They're lying. And this is a disgrace. And if the news feeds and social feeds weren't so censored in Israel, I imagine that the Israeli people would not permit what has been done in their name.
You actually say in terms that what we're seeing in Gaza is the responsibility of the whole Israeli people. But I think you'd accept that Mr. Netanyahu doesn't command a majority of the voters in Israel, and he faces regular demonstrations against the war. Isn't it a bit unfair to blame all Israelis for this?
No, because they're the ones at war. Their government is at war in their name. Whatever about the origins of this war, and I would completely agree with everyone as to what happened on October the 7th, inhumane, disgusting, and disgraceful. But we're way, way past that now. We're down to some base level of bestiality. And if the Israeli people are aware of what's been done in their name, and you've had on Sky News, Dr. Maynard reporting exactly where people are being targeted as they queue for food. Let me just finish this. Yes. And they're being used, quote, as target practice, so that one day they're targeted at their abdomens, the next day young men are targeted in their testicles. Trevor, please, anyone watching this, please, we're way beyond the protestations of this government who are stacked with extremists. And Netanyahu has now gone beyond anything he proposed as his war aim. He's flailing. And the subject of this flailing is these children. And honestly, I don't want to hear from Hamas. I don't want to hear from Netanyahu. Stop this by any means right now.
The Israeli Defense Force, of course, would contest your description of what is happening around
of course they do.
Stations. And
show me an army behaving like they do. Who doesn't?
But I think that the issue here is we can see demonstrations weekly by Israelis against their own government.
Not enough, mate.
And the point I'm really just making is, isn't it a bit unfair to say this is the Israelis as a whole?
Stop it. Stop it, Trevor. What's unfair is what's happening to these babies. What's unfair is that image that you showed us. That's unfair. 1 hour from, I've been in Gaza, I've been in the West Bank, I've been in Israel many times. What's unfair is that 1 hour from the hunger, people are sitting down to their unthreatened dinners to turn on the next Netflix soap. 1 hour. So if Israelis want to protest, get in your cars. This is very Bob stuff, I know. Sorry about that. Okay. Get in your cars, stuff your cars full of food and drive through that border and let your own army stop you. Stop it. You guys stop it. Shame on you.
But one other thing I just want to say about your argument, about your article before we come on to talk about our own government. You say that the Israelis will sit down to unthreatened dinners and soap operas on TV. But I think an Israeli would be saying to you now, whatever the truth about what's happening as you've described it, even before October the 7th, before that atrocity, they would say that there were people under constant attack from the Iranians, from the Houthis, from Hezbollah, from Hamas. They do have reason to be fearful, don't they?
They do indeed. And I entirely support and endorse the state of Israel. This is not part of this. This is about using infants as instruments of war and starving. Trevor, there are very few people watching this program have held or seen or heard babies dying of hunger, or seeing the panicked mothers or the fathers and their failure to take care of their children. Just stop. Just stop.
What do you make of our own government's reaction so far?
Not enough. And, you know, this is a distractive thing about, let's recognize the state. Absolutely. It should have been done ages ago. But it's not going to make any material difference. Please, Labour MPs, stop signing your letters. You know, stop Prime Minister and that. You know, it's a plain fact that David Lammy would like to immediately recognise it. It's a plain fact Keir Starmer probably would. But he's got Trump, you know, up in Scotland. It's probably he feels it's in Britain's greater interest to stay as close to the US, especially with this variable president at the moment. So there's big pictures in there, but enough. Guys, focus on the issue to hand. It isn't the recognition of the state. That will come inevitably, and the sooner the better. But that isn't the issue with what you are telling us nightly, Trevor. The issue is, can we stop these children and their exhausted and panicked mothers? As you yourself reported, children are, as the FT reported today, children are taking a teaspoonful of salt and as much water as they can drink to fill their bellies. Who are we? Who are we? In Bristol this week, they created the fourth largest computer that can do 23 quintillion deductions in a second. And children are taking a teaspoonful of salt and a belly full of water down the road. Shut up. What have we become that we can do this miracle and perpetuate this atrocity, this agony? Honestly, Trevor, seriously, beyond argument, can we all just focus on what's important?
Bob, just before I let you go, can I just ask you very briefly about one other area where I know Band-Aid is active and which, if you like, one shouldn't compare disasters, but is equally worthy, I think, of our attention, and that is Sudan. What should we... do you have any hope of peace there?
No, you're right, Trevor. Band-Aid is active there. If these gang-raped women and their broken bodies and minds can get over the line with their starving kids, then we'll do our best to try and give them some sort of hope for life. But the reality is, as Boston University reported since February the 1st this year, when Musk, that deeply troubled person, cackled the richest... I mean, look, the strongest nation on earth, the most powerful man on the planet, and the richest individual ever seen in the history of the world decided with glee to feed, in their words, USAID to the chipper. The net result is that so far 300,000 people have died, according to Boston University, and the Lancet, of all papers, reported 14 million would die before 2030 because of this policy. USAID have shut down all their work in Sudan, and as a result, currently about 2 million children are dying of hunger, again, as a deliberate instrument of war. And there's no one to take care of them, and there's no one to report on it. So the world is not a nice place, but where we can do something, where we can possibly tilt it a little towards justice and fairness, then we should. And that would be Israel at the moment.
Bob Geldof, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Trevor.
Well, we did invite the Israeli ambassador here for an interview this morning. She was not available. Well, the Israeli military has announced a tactical pause in fighting in 3 areas of Gaza. It'll designate secure routes to help aid agencies deliver food. And we've had this response from the Israeli government. Despite the false claims that are being spread, the state of Israel does not limit the number of humanitarian aid trucks entering the Gaza Strip. Recently, the Israeli security establishment has advanced a series of measures to stabilize the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, including the opening of the Zikim crossing, the entry of aid via the Egyptian and Jordanian routes, adjusting the inspection capacity at the crossings, developing joint plans with the UN and international organizations to improve collection capabilities, and more. Over the past month, we've witnessed a significant decline in the collection of aid from the crossings into the Gaza Strip by international aid organizations. The delays in collection by the UN and international organizations harm the situation and the food security of Gaza's residents.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture.
Over the last year and a half, high up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, leveling the land, building houses. They call it an intentional community based around shared ancestry, a long-winded way of saying something really quite simple.
I think we would generally be called far-right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in.
A lot of people are going to be, why are you making Nazi references?
Right. Well, why wouldn't I?
A seemingly bucolic and sometimes surreal experience. But this is built on a radical modern premise, made possible because of a new political and technological moment. One with strong ties to the most active far-right groups in the US. Instead of taking to the streets, they are building their own, for generations to come.
It's important for me to do this for my ancestors, my friends, my family, my children, my children's children.
But in this southern US state, people who have lived through segregation once fear it is returning.
When you hear things like that, it causes you to be fearful, and you don't know who to trust.
Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
It's a racial association. I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
Arkansas, in the southern United States.
Welcome to Little Rock, where the local time is 4:27.
For the last few years, I've been exploring how an ethno-nationalist movement has been organising online. a network that aims to define countries by ethnicity, but which links across borders. And this is the place that one group has chosen to put that into radical, real-world action.
You want a white nation? Build a white town. It can be done, and we're doing it.
It is an extreme view, but it draws on more familiar arguments. That mass immigration is out of control, that Western societies are in danger of losing their fundamental character as a result.
So one of the arguments here is that this isn't about persecution of an ethnic identity, but protection of an ethnic identity, and that identity happens to be white. So we're going here now up into these pretty remote woods to really put that to the test.
We are driving deep into the Ozark Mountains. The group's leaders are not from Arkansas, and they've chosen these remote parts for a reason. All the locals I spoke to knew only a little about the group, if anything.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's not my choice.
Yeah, but do you think they should have the freedom to do it?
That's what they want to do.
I think it's kind of a little fishy around here, but just be safe.
The leader of the group is called Eric Orwell, and he's invited me to spend a few days with them.
Hey, Eric.
He insists what he is doing here is entirely legal, and that's key. Because if it is, it could be a blueprint for many other communities to come.
Welcome to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out.
You don't let everyone into your home.
160 acres taking shape, forest cleared, roads laid, cabins built. Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And I'm intrigued to find out what motivates people to give up their old lives for this.
We met here.
Oh, you met here? I guess he came here.
I met here on day 3. So.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a story. It beats Tinder, doesn't it?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
David and Caitlin not only met here, they got married last month. And they wouldn't be here without social media.
Somebody had posted a video of Eric.
Yeah.
I saw videos of them actually building stuff on the land. I was like, oh man, I gotta come check this out.
And I figure if there's nothing else like this in the country, it should at least exist.
Yeah.
Do people really think that we should never be able to choose our neighbors?
It wouldn't be controversial for any other racial group to do the same thing.
I think it'd be quite controversial.
Well, if you don't have rules against it, then, anyone of any race can come and be your neighbor, and they're watching the news, which is telling you that white people are, the cause of all your problems and all the ills of society, and suddenly, your children are much less safe because there's a lot of violence, anti-white violence happening to white people and white children, and so...
Specifically sort of motivated by racism against white people? What sort of things the heavens are about to...
Yeah. I'd like to continue talking, but the rain starts and it comes down hard. The residents shelter in their cabins and night falls. The next morning. This is how the average weekend works at Return to the Land, or RTTL, what they call a work party, made up of residents, but also new recruits who have come to check out the project. It is hot, hard work. To join RTTL, you have to sign up to the Private Members Association, or PMA. And there are strict criteria for membership, as Scott Thomas, a board member, and one of the founding fathers here explains.
You have to be a PMA member to live here.
Yeah.
So You have to be someone of European heritage.
The group's logo, based on a Nordic rune, draws on that heritage. It is the PMA that the group believes makes this all legal. Once members have been vetted on ethnicity and other grounds, they can buy shares in the Limited Liability Company, or LLC. Those shares translate to acres of land that they can build on. Peter Seri is the brains behind the legal side of things.
Civil Rights Act is there for a reason, and this is a way around it.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll survive contact with the legal system, the courts, if it came to that?
Hopefully.
Do you think it's racist or not? Do you reject that term? Do you embrace it?
I don't know about that term. I mean, people use it in a lot of different ways. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the internet who would call me racist. I don't really know or care whether that term applies to me or not. Maybe.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I almost don't know what racist means anymore. Like it's you call it racist.
There's a prejudice towards someone who's from a different ethnicity.
Well, actually, the modern definition of racism, according to critical race theory, all white people are racist automatically.
A lot of this is reaction to left-wing identity politics, critical race theory, and movements like Black Lives Matter. And fundamentally, this is identity politics, but white identity politics. And what they're building here is a safe space for people of European ancestry.
It's exclusionary, it's sort of an attempt at segregation.
Right.
Is that fair?
Probably.
While the men labour at the roadside, the women of Return to the Land are at work too, looking after the 6 children who live and are homeschooled here full-time. And they're preparing food for the weekly community dinner. The theme tonight, colonial.
I don't know, dinner's really important. I like feeding people, so I didn't want to put this off any longer than I already had.
Back in the day, when we first got the land here, there were only about 5 guys. I was living 40 minutes from here, and Jennifer was the first, family to be on the road full time. So we started community dinners back then, and it would be pretty relaxed because there weren't many people. But it is nice. It's slowly growing. So
They've come here to live for a variety of reasons, but their dedication to the mission is absolute.
My name's Nikki, N-I-K-I, I'm 32.
Cool.
I'm a lady.
My name's Allison, A-L-I-S-O-N, I'm 29.
Right.
And Caitlin, C-A-I-T-L-I-N, I'm 31.
I think people just have a large misunderstanding of what's happening here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's the biggest misunderstanding?
Well...
That we hate everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about that by any means.
It's a loving movement.
I mean, on that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter argument would be it could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do, and I think that's great for them. If other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
But the goal is to have lots of these communities, and for it maybe not to be rural, for there to be cities on the same basis, right?
Yeah, that would be neat. I look forward to seeing how this movement grows over time.
There are other ways to increase numbers. Nikki, Caitlin and Alison all met their partners at the community. And RTTL is explicit about this. It has an online fundraiser to give cash rewards to parents of newborns as a means to incentivise population growth. Just before we arrived, they had donated $1,000 to a family for having their 6th child.
Is that part of the mission as well, to sort of have big families, to make the community bigger? Is there a sort of pressure there?
I don't think so.
I don't feel particularly myself, I don't feel any pressure to have a big family. I think there's a kind of expectation here that you do want to, as part of helping grow this thing, that you're going to have kids.
There's not a lot to show around here. I basically just have the whole pasture area.
Peter is unattached. This is his homestead. He's been on a journey. He told me he used to be a liberal, a hippie even.
The knife is a tool. It has to be very sharp in order to cut properly.
He founded a commune in Ecuador, an intentional community based not on ethnicity, but veganism.
So this is your lot?
Yeah.
But he's also immersed in internet culture, someone who delights in provoking reactions, a troll. On the group chat on the messaging app Telegram, he's posted the numbers 1488. The 14 refers to the 14 words, a white supremacist slogan. And H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So 88 means HH, which means Heil Hitler.
Because you put that in the Telegram, for instance. What does that mean when you place that in Telegram 1488?
Well, I use it as kind of like a funny comment, throwback.
As part of that Nazi discussion, another frequent topic on the online chat is the Holocaust. Usually minimised, sometimes even mocked.
But the Holocaust, stands as a unique crime in the history of
Well, that's your
humanity,
opinion.
really.
I think the Holodomor was much worse than the Holocaust. That's my opinion. I mean, we're allowed to have opinions.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can say they're both bad. The Holocaust was bad.
But do you know anything about the Holodomor?
Yeah, in Ukraine,
Right.
the famine, I know a little bit about it, and I know it was awful too, and
Right,
it's sort of
right.
deliberate, but we can also agree the Holocaust is bad.
Well, we don't have to say that one was objectively worse than the other.
I'm not saying
but-
one. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, was the Holocaust a bad thing?
So basically all I'm saying is that I don't really see it as concerning that people are talking about Hitler when it's acceptable, it's publicly, socially acceptable in the United States for leftists to support German Mao.
It's quite difficult to agree on even the very bare minimum here.
It's just interesting, sort of, when we're coming to talking about the Holocaust, it's always about something else, and I think most people would agree the Holocaust was a bad thing.
Right.
But you're not willing to agree with that.
What, do you want to talk about the whole? I mean, it
fine.
seems like an interesting subject, but
It is an interesting subject. I also think that was a bad thing, but I think the Holocaust was a bad thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, are you
But-
asking, are you asking
well,
me a
no,
question?
yeah, I'm asking you, do you think the Holocaust was bad?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Holocaust was bad.
RTTL is based on exclusion, but that also means building community for those allowed inside. This isn't just for our camera's benefit, to present a veneer of clean, healthy living. It's central to the project. Like many far-right movements before them, RTTL's mission is to show that by excluding others, they can live purer, more natural lives. As they put it on their website, to cultivate wholesomeness, beauty, health, and hope. Let's talk about hope. As much as RTTL might like, they do not exist in a separate world. Pocahontas is the nearest town to the settlement. And hope means something different for Pat Johnson.
I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
Oh, you're Pat. Lovely to meet you, Pat. How are you?
We met her before we went up into the hills.
It was about 25 students that attended school here.
And the
on
whole
and off.
time, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really tiny. There you are,
Yes.
second from bottom. How old are you in that photo?
I don't know. I think probably about 12 or 13.
This is the school she attended in the 1950s, a school for black children only, because she was not allowed to be educated with white people. Unlike the members of Return to the Land, she is Arkansas born and bred. For the first 15 years of her life, she lived under segregation.
We could not go to school together. We couldn't eat together. We couldn't do everyday things together. Each day that you leave your home, you are under rejection.
And Pat had hoped those days had gone.
When you hear things like that, it causes you to be fearful, and you don't know who to trust.
When I explain what Return to the Land is doing, just half an hour's drive away, she's not so sure. And in her eyes, there is one main reason for that.
And I feel like that's the change of, and I'm just going to say, I think it's the change of our presidency. That's what I'm going to say, because I feel like that's where the change is. It's allowing people to have the right to be open for hatred.
That may be a feeling, but it is also backed by the data. These are all the white supremacist incidents, demonstrations, leafleting, recruitment drives, meetups over the last 4 years in the US, tracked by ACLED, an organisation that monitors violent conflict and protest. There has been a dramatic increase over that period. It has become a background thrum of nationalist activity. Patriot Front is the most active white nationalist organisation in the US right now, according to ACLED. Its leader is Thomas Rousseau.
Foreign races have never successfully assimilated en masse into American culture and nationality.
And the group has tight links to return to the land. Eric and Thomas speak on each other's podcasts and have fast-track membership for both organisations.
Comfy?
Feels good.
Yeah.
It's about time we spoke to Eric.
Less than 50% of children born today in the US are white. I'm white, my kids are white. There is something to your background that informs who you are, your sense of identity. And we don't want that sense of identity being taken away from us involuntarily. So we're taking control of that situation and creating an environment where my kids can celebrate their identity and not have it, threatened from outside, I guess.
But why is that threatening you? Why is that an issue that you've had to address? There will always be white people.
Well, I'm feeling a little nervous now in the interview. We are forced to accept people into our neighborhoods, into our businesses, and into our lives who won't share our background, who won't share many of our cultural priors, even moral priors. We don't have a rule stating, if you have X amount of non-European ancestry, you're definitely out. In many cases, yeah, that would disqualify someone.
Were I to apply to the PMA and my views were different, I'd probably be allowed in. Do you think that's likely? I know it's a case-by-case basis, but just off the top of your head.
Yeah, possibly we would accept you in the PMA.
I don't understand white American culture, but you'd rather have me in that case. I just wonder, though, whether some people watching this, having heard all this intellectualizing, this rhetoric, would say, fine, but actually at heart, this is just, it is just prejudice, it is just bigotry, it is just lowest common denominator racism dressed up in these arguments.
And I would just question the moral frame. Why is it wrong to identify with your own people, want an integrated culture where you can be yourself?
Just to boil it down to, what for you is the definition of racism?
When I was a kid, I suppose I interpreted racism to be judging someone solely on the basis of their race. And is that a good or bad thing? I think this basic moral consensus treats it as automatically a bad thing without a lot of reflection.
This is my last day here, and before I go, I want to speak to John. Not a leader like Eric or Pete or Scott, but an acolyte, a young one and newly arrived. He's only been here a month.
So I'm trying to knock off some of this more good topsoil, give it some more.
We'd seen him when we first came up. He guided us in on his bicycle.
It's just you have a community where you feel like you belong here. You have people you can talk to, and I can't explain it. It's too beautiful. It's nice.
He'd been working on Scott's new house over the weekend. In return for his labour, he gets cheap rent. John dropped out of college, and he's worked jobs all over the United States. He's 26, younger than the leaders who are all in their 30s. If they are the recruiters, he is the perfect recruit. And for John, the primary motivation was financial.
To me, it's economical. It's an economic decision, right? And everything else just kind of falls in line. Yeah. But the main thing to me is cheap land. Everything else is a bonus.
You've got 2 levels here.
Yep. Got a loft up top, and this is the main area.
It's a living area down here. So it's quite comfy, right?
It is quite comfy. As for excluding people, I don't see it that way. We're trying to embrace our culture and our heritage. It's been denigrated, if you ask me. We've turned into a melting pot of a country for a long time now.
There is one last thing before I go. A concert put on in honor of our visit.
This first piece that Peter and I are performing, it's called The Virginia Colonies by Fred Cooper. The English governor returned to take his place.
Eric himself takes the stage.
This is a Baroque flute, also known as the German flute or the penny whistle. It was a very popular instrument in colonial America.
It's not easy to look tough with a flute, even if it's German. But the audience is rapt. Would America be better as a white nation state?
Better in what sense?
Would you prefer, completely blank slate, America is just an ethnically white country?
I would probably feel more comfortable there because I'm white, and that's the way that this country was when my ancestors came here.
You also talk about Hitler in your videos a couple of times when you've talked about people who are waiting around for a new Hitler to come. And you said he's not going to show up. You have to do the work for that Hitler to arrive.
Hitler is a very controversial historical figure. I think the mainstream view is one-sided. It's informed by World War II propaganda, but also the contrary position that Hitler did nothing wrong that many people online say, that's also a one-sided view. I think all historical figures are complex, multidimensional, but when I say you're gonna have to wait for that new Hitler to arise, I'm not saying you're gonna have to wait for a new person to start a new Holocaust. I'm saying you're gonna have to wait for a charismatic leader who's going to advocate for your interests, because that's how a lot of people see Hitler. I'm addressing how they think of Hitler, not my own view.
There are other PMAs, other bits of land that are going ahead?
Yeah, there are two other groups, actually three, organizing. One in Appalachia, one in the Pacific Northwest, and then another one here in Arkansas.
So this is the growing movement?
Right now it's growing very quickly. Yeah, we have applicants every week. I would like to see more communities so that people in all parts of the U.S. have this as an option if they want it. I would also like to see us network and branch out internationally to a greater extent.
Is there anything you want to talk about that I haven't asked about?
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
Yeah. And that's not, for me, it is morally objectionable. I think the way we've talked about it is, I don't think it is like a country club. That's the difference. I don't think this is sort of free association. I think you are depriving people of a fundamental right to housing. That's how I see this issue. And I think the reason I'm asking those questions about where it goes from here, I think that is a thought experiment, but I think if you replicated it large, I think I would be unhappy with how that looked if it were in my country and if I were on the receiving end of it.
You think intentional communities shouldn't be able to associate how they like?
Not on the basis of race. And the Arkansas State Attorney General told us, "This is the first I've heard of these allegations. Racial discrimination has no place in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. These allegations raise all sorts of legal issues, including constitutional concerns. My office is reviewing the matter." This is how members of Return to the Land often spend their evenings, around the campfire. It's not especially kumbaya when it's about keeping other races out.
You can splice this into the shots for your reviews. Somebody says something a little bit racist, just switch to the gasoline blowing up on the fire.
The bulldozer isn't just a novel way to build a fire. It's also a reminder that this group's ambitions extend far beyond cozy get-togethers in the hills.
I think Scott's bringing more wood over. Yeah, we might want to move there a second.
The conditions and materials for that to happen, the politics and the technology, have been on hand for some time now. And once set alight, who knows how fiercely it will burn and who the flames will touch.